I know we don't want to talk badly about Millie Bobby Brown, but I'm very hopeful that this conversation that is being had very badly about Millie Bobby Brown right now will make it so that actresses do not get filler, or because I'm sick of it. I'm sorry. I don't care who it is. I don't care who it is. It's getting the filler. It looks weird on the screen, and I haven't been watching movies lately. I've been watching older movies. It just looks normal. I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like it. And if you get filler, we can tell. We can tell. I just hope it becomes unprofessional for an actress or an actor to get filler. I hope that becomes a thing.
If you look back at old theater makeup, really old theater makeup before film even started, when theater was really the main form of entertainment, one thing that you will notice right off the jump is that they had very, very strong makeup. Everything was really exaggerated. And if you've ever been in a play, if you were a theater kid or even been in one play, then you know that you put your makeup on a little bit thicker, a little bit darker than you might usually do your makeup. And that's so that people can see you all the way from the back. They want to be able to see your expression. If you're playing somebody old, we want to see those wrinkles from the back row. So yes, part of it was practicality, but it was also about being able to see the artist's and the actor's expression. A big part of good theater or movie is when you're really able to see the emotion that an actor is trying to convey. And that's whether it's surprise or sadness or joy, all of it has to read really clearly to someone that's sitting 100 feet away from the stage. And silent film actors took this sort of thing even a step further. If you've heard of Charlie Chaplin, for example, he trained his face to be really, really expressive. And it was very important because in a silent film, that's the only way to understand the plot line. So a raised eyebrow could convey a question, or a frown might mean that you're devastated or disgusted or even sad, but you needed to be very expressive. Their expressions were almost cartoonish if you look at it in today's standards, but back then that was a skill, and that's what separated the good from the bad. And even earlier than that, in Italian theater from the 1500s, actors wore masks, and the masks that they wore were also very expressive and oftentimes very exaggerated so that you could tell who a character was and what it was that they were feeling on stage. And for centuries, if you were a performer, your face was pretty much your most important tool. So being expressive was something that you trained for. It was something that you refined or even pushed yourself to do more of. And as a culture, we're sort of shifting towards not really valuing emotional range and expressiveness. And part of this shift in media, at least, is technological, of course. There's a lot of advancements. Cameras got better. There's high definition, and you could see the subtle expressions a lot easier, but part of it is also cultural, and that's where things start to get interesting, at least in my opinion, because now we're at this point where some of the most visible people in our culture, like the actors and the celebrities and the people whose job it is to communicate emotions, can't really even move their face anymore, or at least they can't move it like they used to. And I don't know about you, but it definitely is something that I've been noticing. So when did looking perfect become more important than being able to show your emotions on your face? So that's what I really want to discuss in this video today, because I think it's so interesting how we've shifted from that older period of just like super expressive and caring about your expression to now people just willingly freezing their face. What's up, YouTube? I'm tinysey, and if you're new here, welcome. I hope you like it. Look at this video, look at my old videos, stay around. And if you are returning, thank you so much for coming back. We are in 2026. Happy New Year's, everybody. As you can see, I'm in a new location. I have better lighting, so I'm hoping to really step it up this year. Thank you for everybody that was watching me last year. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and welcome to my digital garden. Honestly, one thing that kind of got out of hand for me last year was my eating out, because between traveling and working late and just being tired in general, I was ordering food way more than I actually realized. So this year, I'm challenging myself to cut my dining out spending in half, and I only felt confident in setting that goal because I could actually see the numbers. I've been using Rocket Money for 3 years now, and I went back to check exactly how much I spent on dining last year, and let's just say it was humbling, but also it was really motivating. And that's why I'm excited to tell you about today's sponsor, Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you stay on top of your money by tracking your spending. You also can organize your finances all in one place, and it also helps you build better habits without all of the stress. And what I love the most is having a clear view of everything. All my accounts are linked so I can see my full financial picture all in one dashboard. And that's instead of having to bounce between all of the different apps that I have. And for this specific goal I have, the spending categories are really helpful. I can track dining out separately and create custom rules and actually see if I'm sticking to what I said I was going to do. And so it's not necessarily about being perfect, it's more about being aware. And Rocket Money makes that a lot easier. So if you're also trying to be more intentional with your money this year, Rocket Money is free to download, and you can get a free premium trial when you sign up with my link. So just go to rocketmoney.com/tinysey, and thank you to our sponsor, Rocket Money. So why are we seeing this loss of facial expression with so many celebrities? After researching, I quickly found out that this actually isn't that new of a phenomenon, and there's actually a whole history of Hollywood celebrities getting plastic surgery that goes back further than people actually realize. It actually started as early as the 1930s. A Photoplay magazine article from that time reported that Fanny Brice had a nose job, and so did BB Daniels and Vivian Siegel. And if you don't know who they are, it's okay, because I didn't either until I read the article. But all you need to know is that they were stars of their time. People also thought that an actor that was named Mary Pickford had an early facelift, but it left her unable to smile, because that was back when facelifts were basically just pulling the skin really tight, which usually ended up leaving you looking like you were permanently being blown back by the wind. But by the 1950s, the technology seemed to have gotten better, to the point that apparently Marilyn Monroe also had some work done. She got a nose job and a chin implant that wasn't even public knowledge until she died and had an autopsy. Rita Hayworth had her hairline moved back with electrosis, and Dean Martin had work done on his nose. But again, most people don't even realize this, and I guess that was kind of the point. The goal was to gently refine your face to the features that you already had, and that was once they had the technology to do that. And from what I saw, that seemed to be the approach for quite a while, a few decades actually, from the 60s into the 90s. Cosmetic surgery was something people did very quietly. It was very hush-hush. And I even remember the days when plastic surgery was a hush-hush thing. Like, it wasn't something that they would announce. Not that it's a good or bad thing that now people announce it, but I do remember the time when people weren't so ready to say they had Botox, even filler, like even the minimally invasive stuff, they weren't ready to say they got it done. Like, I couldn't imagine someone back then doing a get ready with me to go get my Botox done. Like, unheard of. The ideal outcome was that no one could tell. You wanted people to think that you were just aging really well, not that you necessarily had work done. But around the early 2000s, that kind of changed. So a few things actually happened right there. First, Botox was approved by the FDA for cosmetic use in 2002, which made it so that it didn't only have to be used for medical treatment. So naturally it became mainstream, kind of like we see with Ozempic. And unlike with surgery, Botox was marketed as preventative. So it was something you could start doing in your 30s or even your 20s to stop wrinkles before they formed. And that made it way more normalized. So within a few years, getting Botox was about as controversial as dyeing your hair. Around the same time, HD TV started to come out, and the high definition cameras changed how faces appeared on the screen. I actually remember getting our first HD TV or flat screen TV, and it was so weird. All of a sudden, I could see the actors, I could see that they're acting, I could see the set, I could see the lighting. It was just so surreal compared to, I remember having the box TV. The actors who looked completely fine on standard definition TV looked different too. I could see the makeup and things just looked very textured in HD. And so naturally that technology changed what faces were expected to look like on camera. And that probably pushed more celebrities towards cosmetic procedures. But the real question is, when did it get how it is nowadays? And I think it all started in 2010 when Instagram launched. Because a few years later, fillers were literally everywhere. The dog filter, the crown filter, Facetune, all the classics. We got so desensitized to digital alteration. I even remember hearing that some people were getting cosmetic surgery to look how they looked with their filters on. So this became like so life altering that people actually wanted to look how they looked with these fake filters on. And then came the Kardashians. It honestly wouldn't be a plastic surgery video if I didn't mention them, so I have to. In the mid 2010s, we had the Instagram face, and it was pretty much just the Kardashian copy. High cheekbones, big lips, slim nose, racially ambiguous, the cat eye. And this was probably the key change. At this point, it wasn't about enhancing your natural features anymore. It was more so about conforming to this single recognizable aesthetic, the Kardashians. Regardless of what your face looked like originally, the goal wasn't to look like a beautiful version of yourself. It was to look like that kind of face, or the face that was being rewarded at the time. Now I can wake up on a random Tuesday and the celebrities all just got this new cosmetic procedure, kind of like we saw with the buccal fat removal a couple years ago. All of a sudden, everyone sculpted. Looking like you had work done has low-key become a part of the aesthetic. Obvious filler, tight foreheads, sculpted faces. It's almost become a status symbol because it gives wealth, it gives access and relevance. And now I'm seeing that celebrities talk fairly open about this. When Ariana Grande was accepting her award for Rising Star, she pretty much jokingly said, "I never thought at the age of 31 I would be hearing the words Rising Star again." So I wanted to start by thanking my two friends, Botox and Juvederm. And she later clarified and said that she was joking, but like, were you joking? Were you joking? But nonetheless, this really changes things because old Hollywood's cosmetic surgery was more so about refining the human face and making sure that it still could move, express emotions, and modern cosmetic work often aims for something else completely. It's kind of making the face look more filtered, more smooth, almost AI generated, and you're seeing features you wouldn't naturally see on certain phenotypes start to appear. And most importantly, it's making their faces stop moving the way that they're supposed to. So now it seems like we're shifting towards removing our natural facial expression, and that's what we're seeing play out on the screen right now. That's why something kind of feels off when we're watching certain people perform, because somewhere in the last 20 years we kind of forgot that faces are supposed to move. So now I keep seeing so many celebrities get called out for plastic surgery after movies or television series come out. And I usually hear the same sort of feedback, that the viewer was pulled out of their experience because of whatever plastic surgery they think the actor got. Kim Kardashian's show All's Fair came out at the end of 2025 on Hulu, and the premise is an all-female law firm in Los Angeles that handles high-stake divorce cases for wealthy clients. I didn't personally watch it, but I honestly didn't have to because I'm online. I saw what I need to see, and everyone was reacting to literally the same thing. One of the biggest criticisms that kept coming up was Kim's acting, and I think a lot of that came down to her expressions. The reviews were saying that she had zero facial expression, which I don't know about that one. Like zero, she was moving her face. They're being a little extra, but I get the point.
Hi, car. To what do we owe the pleasure?
Why, if it isn't Allura Grant, you look like a hot dog on a stick. Burger with a side of fries. You're a disgrace.
Come right in.
And Kim was playing a high-powered divorce lawyer, which is a role that kind of requires a lot of different emotions. You have to be confident, you have to be manipulative, you have to portray vulnerability and anger. But if your face isn't really showing those things, then the performance is going to fall flat. And then you're just left with voice intonation and body movement, which is also equally important. But that's just 2/3 of what I think makes a performance convincing, at least for me personally. And an actor's job is to convince you that the world on screen is real, whether it's for 30 minutes or an hour. I want to be immersed. And I think the best actors, people like Zendaya, hey, don't fight me. Don't fight me. I said what I said. Leonardo DiCaprio, Viola Davis, the list goes on. I think that they are able to do that, convey their emotions on their face, their body, their voice, all of it. You can essentially read what they're trying to convey pretty clearly. I always think of the scene at the end of Euphoria season 1 when Rue was banging on Fez's door for him to open up, and chef's kiss, amazing scene. I think of that because it was such an amazing performance. It was very compelling. And the other thing with Kim is that her face itself kind of pulls you out of the story. You're not watching a lawyer, you're watching Kim Kardashian play a lawyer. And yes, lawyers in real life can have plastic surgery, but there's a level of work that ends up reading as wealthy or like you're a celebrity or you have Instagram face. And when you're trying to believe a character, I don't know about you, but it breaks me out of it. I become aware of the fact that I'm watching somebody famous pretending to be a normal person. Then we have Millie Bobby Brown, who's also getting a little bit of criticism in this final season of Stranger Things. People keep saying that her expression felt very rigid and that she kept making that one face that you've probably seen. One review described it as the same look of vague consternation in every scene. And this is someone who literally built her career on being super expressive. Like that shouting scene where she's going like this, iconic. Very dynamic. Could be because the franchise was more new. Maybe she was able to play the character a little differently. I don't know. Maybe she's drained. Maybe she's over the franchise. There's so many reasons why her acting could have changed. But nonetheless, whatever the reason, fans are noticing something. When I look at the TikToks, of course I see what they're saying, but personally, I don't think that it actually took me out of the show as much as the general bad writing was just taking me out of the show for this last season. But clearly, for a lot of people, it was noticeable enough that it became this trending meme. Some people are attributing it to potential filler, potential Botox. There's a lot of speculations surrounding her, like what she got done. To me, it wasn't that noticeable, but I think it's a good example because even at whatever minimal work she's gotten done, it still was enough to make people not necessarily focus on what 11 was doing. You're taken out of that viewer experience. And this isn't only something happening to women. Zac Efron's face looks completely different than it did 10 years ago, and it's not because he's older, although that's part of it. Ryan Gosling also has a lot of filler. There are plenty of male actors that are experiencing the same thing. They're also getting filler, they're also getting Botox, and I'm sure the movies they're in, people are also getting pulled out. And just to be clear, I'm not trying to make any moral judgments about plastic surgery. I'm not saying that actors can't or shouldn't change their appearance, but what I am noticing is that there's just this broader shift. And it just keeps bringing me back to the same question. Is this changing how movies and TVs actually feel for us to watch? Because acting really does depend on the face, and when their expressions are limited and when their face is literally pulling us out of immersion and when we're too aware of the work that's being done on their face, we can't really believe in the character that we're supposed to believe in. So I just keep wondering if our collective pursuit for physical perfection is somehow undermining the thing that makes performances actually work in the first place. Expression is obviously really important to us as humans because it's how we understand and communicate with each other. There's actually this classic psychology experiment called the still face experiment, and it's when a caregiver interacts with the baby and they're smiling, they're reacting, they're responding to them, and the baby will be calm and very engaged. But then when the caregiver goes more neutral with no expression and they don't really give the baby any facial responses, the baby starts to get distressed and they'll try harder to get a reaction by reaching out or smiling. And when nothing works, that's when they start to get upset and cry. So even though nothing overtly bad is happening, the lack of facial responses causes the bad reaction. And So even babies expect faces to move, and we expect expression. And so when it disappears, our brain registers that something is wrong. It's such a huge part of what we perceive as being human. If you've ever heard of people saying uncanny valley, it's that eerie and unsettling feeling that people get from looking at robots or CGI or androids that look like they almost are human, but just something is a little bit off. And I think when you're at the point that people could tell that you've had work done, it's because it's triggering that uncanny valley feeling that we have as humans, or that response that we have as human beings to be able to tell when something is not quite right. And a lot of this is very ironic because they're probably getting the surgery to look better on camera, but the very work that they're getting done is actually affecting how their expressions look. It looks good in stills, but as soon as they start moving, it's uncanny. So for actors, this kind of doesn't make sense. Acting is about making the audience feel something, and so much of that happens through their face and how they move it and how the little nuances, the micro expressions. In a sense, that expression is being traded for beauty, and I know there's definitely a lot of pressure, especially in the Hollywood sector, to keep up with your looks and to make sure that you look good on camera and camera tests and all that great stuff. But expression is also functional. It's a part of the job. It's how we're able to understand each other. So if we start to lose that over time because of the rise of plastic surgery, or God forbid, something like the nonchalance epidemic that's running rampant through Gen Z, slight tangent, but definitely related. The nonchalant epidemic is all about, showing less emotion, not being as transparent with how you're feeling about things through your face, through your actions, whatever it is. And a lot of young people are kind of moving towards this nonchalant because of a fear of being perceived, a fear of showing how they actually feel. And imagine them growing up and becoming the new actors, becoming the new people in media, something that we use to look back on history and look back on a particular time. It's going to be very expressionless. It's going to be very flat. And so we're seeing this general shift towards less expression, intentionally or unintentionally. And if this continues to spread, then we lose a vital part of human connection. For celebrities, particularly actors, I imagine that they're very pressured to look picture and camera perfect. I've noticed how weight changes, facial changes, hair changes, aging in general all get very much analyzed and criticized to death when it comes to celebrities. And don't let them have been famous when they were younger. The child actors get it worse because we actually know what they looked like when they were younger. So as they age, we throw their youth back at them kind of as a form of, shaming them for aging. And it's not just the fans that they have to hear talking about them. It's also the media outlets and the casting directors, the studios, literally the entire comment section. If we think about the past Wicked press tour that just ended, people were really going in on Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande, full-blown dissertations about their bodies, how they've been changing. And I'm not saying it was or wasn't warranted, but this is just what they have to deal with in the position that they're in. I've already talked about the criticism Millie Bobby Brown faced for supposedly looking older than her age, and she's addressed that criticism publicly. And you can imagine how that kind of pressure pushes someone towards cosmetic surgery when everyone's saying that you look older than your age. And in those sorts of environments, doing nothing probably feels a lot more risky than doing something. So they just do it. And there are a few actors that have been surprisingly honest about how this issue actually shows up in their career. Amy Lou Wood, who stars in The White Lotus, has said she's very anti-Botox, not because she's against cosmetic procedures in general, but because her face is central to her acting. She's talked about how much her expressiveness actually matters to her performances and how freezing her face would compromise her ability to do her job. And other actors are kind of just learning this the hard way. Daisy May Cooper has openly joked about how getting Botox and filler affected continuity while she was filming. Her facial movement changed so much that it was noticeable on screen. Her eyebrows couldn't really move, and so whether she liked it or not, that became part of the performance. Even Nicole Kidman has said she tried Botox and stopped because she didn't like how it was affecting her face, and she talked about being glad to have the ability to move her forehead back, which for an actor is not a small thing, but To be fair, that was in 2011, and I'm not sure if that's still how she feels, because I saw her in Baby Girl, and if you've seen her in any of her other projects, she gets a lot of criticism for frozen face acting. And interestingly, Kim Kardashian has also acknowledged this sort of tension. She said that getting Botox made her worry about acting, and she wondered how she was going to be able to cry or show fear if her face couldn't move the way she needed it to. So for actors, appearance is very much personal, but it's also professional. Cosmetic procedures become a form of risk management so that they can stay afloat and still look great on camera. It's a way for them to stay competitive and also castable. They also probably don't want to be in the headlines for wrinkling, aging, or whatever it is, not looking good on camera. From the outside, it could definitely look like vanity, but inside the industry, it's often a form of survival. It's a response to the environment that treats faces like products and aging like it's a liability. Even though I understand the pressure they're under, it doesn't mean that I'm endorsing the outcome, but it does help explain why so many actors are making the same choice at the same time, even though those choices might interfere with the very thing their job depends on. So maybe the real question isn't whether people should or shouldn't get plastic surgery. I think that is a very personal decision because everyone is dealing with their own reasoning for getting plastic surgery, their own circumstances, and whether that's the pressure of the industry, mean fans, or whatever it is. I'm not here to tell people what they need to do with their face. But I do think it's worth asking what we're trading off, especially in media where the cost is much more visible, because faces aren't just something that you look at, they're one of the main tools for communication. We read things like emotion and intent and sincerity and vulnerability through faces, often before someone even speaks. So expression is how we connect to each other beyond our words and body language. And intuitively, I think we all know this. Some people like to analyze down to the micro expression when they're watching a movie. There are entire channels dedicated to decoding facial expressions because I think we understand how much meaning actually lives on our faces. So by expression getting limited and faces not moving the way that we expect them to, we are changing how we connect to each other and how we connect to faces. It's becoming harder to read emotions, it's harder to feel what someone else is feeling, and it's harder to fully believe what we're actually seeing play out on the screen. And it seemed like in the past centuries, performers understood this sort of thing, and expression wasn't just a decoration for them, it was the entire point of the performance. The face was a communication tool, and it was something that you trained and relied on to make an audience actually feel something. And now, under the pressure to look perfect on and off screen, we're watching that sort of tool slowly get compromised. We're seeing more performances that aren't really hitting with us and scenes that don't fully pull us in. We can't get into it. And it's not because the actor sucks, it's because their face is not cooperating with them. And again, I think it's one of the three major things needed for them to do a good job of making us fall into whatever it is we're watching. So as a society, we've just been trying to figure out how we can look younger, how we can reverse time. But we probably also need to think about what our faces are actually for. If the purpose of our face is to connect and to be empathetic and emotionally communicate what we're saying, then maybe wrinkles and lines aren't flaws. They shouldn't be looked at that way. It's just proof that our face is doing what it needs to do. And I know that's easier said than done, but I think it's good food for thought. So maybe the next era isn't going to be about chasing perfection. Maybe it'll be about letting faces start to move again, especially since we're starting to see that plastic surgery procedures are going back to that natural look, that undetectable look. Of course, we could still tell that something's different because, we have records of what they looked like before, but, it's going back to undetectable, it's going back to understated, it's not being overdone as much. And so just for the sake of media, for the sake of movies and TVs, perhaps if that trend continues, maybe we could get back to the days when expression was valued in media and movies. But that's all I have for you guys. What do you guys think? Have you been noticing this shift towards less expression? Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far in the video, please comment the sun emoji. We all need some sun in our lives. And yeah, happy New Year's, you guys. I'm really excited for what this year is going to bring. Unfortunately, I'm the year of the rat, and there's just so many bad things that are being said about the year of the rat for this year, and so I'm just gonna ignore it. I'm going to ignore it, and my year is going to be great. So I hope you guys also have a good year. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.